I like robots.
Sophia, can I be honest with you? I don't know if it's the island air, you know, or the humidity, or you're just so easy to talk to. You know, you got a clear head, literally.
I think we can be friends. Let's hang out and get to know each other for a little while. You're on my friends list now.
Yeah, I read that wrong. All right.
Yeah, so hello and welcome to my talk, Are You Human or a Damn Bot? As you saw, in real life, it's also important to distinguish between humans and bots. But it's also important if you have a web shop, if you're in e-commerce, of course. So that's all about this talk today. And I'll do some live hacking. So there will be a live credential abuse attack on a demo site to show you how easy it is actually to attack someone. Not for you to do the same, of course. I'm Samy Makki. I'm solutions engineer at Akamai. Out of Hamburg and Berlin, I'm consulting all the customers, especially in e-commerce. Actually all in the region when it comes to topics like web performance, web security, integration with our CDN, our platform. So that's the most important topics. So today it will be all about security. One of the few security talks this time here, so I'm glad you came here, because it's an exciting topic, of course. So some facts to begin with. It's actually nearly 50% of the web browsing traffic is bots. Good, bad bots, whatever. It's not humans, it's not someone like you or me, it's some scripts running against the site. Only a third or so, 28% is actually declaring itself as a bot, saying, yeah, I'm Googlebot, I'm doing good things, or I'm a SEO tool, or I'm a whatever, affiliate bot, or whatever. The rest actually does something, and most of you probably don't know what they do, and why are they there, and what impact do they have. So to start with, there are a huge amount of different bots, so bot categories, starting from the very good ones that actually even are part of your business strategy, actually are really important. I just said search engine bots, obviously, but there are also things like testing tools, your own scripts running. You might have third-party services that access your site, partners, good crawlers, good scrapers, and then you'll get in the gray area where it starts to not be so good for your site, or at least you don't know what they're doing. And that goes into spam bots, price scrapers, so basically people scraping the catalog of your site, the prices, and doing something with it, selling it as business intelligence, using it to do a lower price because maybe it's your competitor. That happens a lot. DDoS bots that actually just want to DDoS you and ask for some bitcoins in order to get your site back. So different kind of bots. And at the very right side, there are actually the really bad ones that are hacker and fraud bots. They are designed to do fraud on your site. That means credential abuse. They try to steal money, they steal your credit cards, do whatever. That's a big focus of this talk, to learn more about those, because first of all, they're the most sophisticated bots and mostly the most harm, do the most harm on your site. So the bot problem for you, so first question, so what is the issue? Okay, there are some bots, but do they harm me, and how? Are they good or bad for my business? So the first thing is, there is two sides of an impact of a bot being on your site. One is the actual IT impact, we call it. So every bot on your site will consume traffic from your backend, from AWS, from your CDN, maybe from Akamai, but also it needs a couple of dozen more EC2 instances because you have to serve the traffic. So it has an IT impact, and the IT impact actually is, at the end, dollars, so your IT spend. But that's not the whole picture. So another big piece is the business impact. So people scraping your website could have a big impact. So first would be the web experience, of course, slowing down your site. Everyone knows performance is important, especially in e-commerce. Slowing the site down, making it, the usability issue is a big problem. Competition, getting your prices and always under selling the stuff cheaper than you is a business impact. Selling stuff in a gray market instead of your shop might be impactful. It might have an impact on the SEO ranking because the site is slow. Marketing, stolen content. At the end, we are in the fraud again. Stealing your credentials of your users, publishing them, stealing credit cards, stealing money, stealing your vouchers or using them for something, that has a big impact. So if you talk about bots, you always have to think about the whole picture, IT impact and business impact. So 3 facts why bots are so hard to detect for you. Because maybe you think, we have everything under control. We know how to get our bots. But these 3 things make it really complicated, in my opinion. There are more, but that's the 3 most important. First of all, if you think about IP blocking, user agents blocking, bots have nowadays a really, really, really large set of IP addresses they can pull. They can change as we speak in milliseconds without any issue. That makes it difficult to figure out what IPs belong to this botnet. How can I group them? How can I block them if I use blacklists and things like that? Next thing is bots, and especially the fraud bots, they try to stay under the radar. We'll see some live examples here of customers that actually had bots under the radar. There's no chance you would detect them and see them because they will be so below the radar in frequency in requests in the time they spend that you'll never detect them this way. And the last thing, as I said, they are persistent, so they don't care if it takes a day, a month, a year. They will just try until they get what they want. Because at the end, behind every bot, there is a bot operator. And the bot operator wants to make money. It's a human being at the end. And this human being will do anything to get this goal because it's his job, basically, most of the time. Good job, I guess, but illegal. So some examples of traffic of customers. So that's not e-commerce. It's one of the top North American financial institutes. And you see the logins. So this is only the logins, so really a login request. See the logins, they peak at like 50,000 logins per hour. During day, you see the night goes down. That's the normal traffic shape you probably have on your site. And you see the bots that actually are in black doing logins only. It's no scraping, it's just logins. So you see across all of that, we had 4 million human logins, but we had 300,000 malicious logins, 20,000 IP addresses, and 4,500 user agents that have been used. So is that one attack? No, actually it's always a combination of multiple people doing the same thing. So if I look closely, you see we basically can, and you see that after a while it goes down to near zero, almost nothing, but it's still 800 malicious logins per request. So and this goes on for forever. So there are smaller attacks that last for a smaller time, and there are some ones that are really persistent and stay forever. So let's go through the botnets that we identified. The first, we call it a pretty stupid bot. Someone who didn't, so he just used 2 IPs and the same user agent. So that's, although it's a lot of, he plays the request rate pretty low, so it's 9 requests per minute. So rate controls will not kick in if you really have them, but still it's pretty easy for you. If you look at the top talkers, if you have some monitoring, you would probably see them and block them. So easy one maybe for you. Okay, let's look at the second one. This one is not so stupid. He has like over 10,000 IPs. which is okay, and uses 600 or 700 user agents, also okay, but is impatient. He wants, he wants it now. So he just does an average of 60 requests per minute. It's still one request at a time, so it's still okay. It's not, we saw much, much higher, but this probably will kick in if you have a good rate limit and if you look at the frequency that someone logs in. So also maybe something you would detect, but look at the last one. So the last one is using 1,500 IPs, almost also 200 user agents, and a frequency, really, really low frequency from 0.5 requests a minute. If you translate it, it is 0.00035 requests per minute per IP. So if you look at log analysis or you try to find that out just by the behavior of this IP, you will never see that it's different than a human. Because so rate limits, that means if you look at the frequency per IP, that will never help because that's way below every human, I guess. So it's like one log in every, I don't know, yeah. Do the math anyway. Okay, then I'll just show you another attack, which is completely different. This is e-commerce. Inventory grabbing of a pretty big online retailer selling stuff that only they sell. So it's a hype sale. We only have it in a limited edition, so everyone is going to try to grab that. And a lot of bots trying to grab it to sell the stuff in the gray market because they can make a shitload of money with it. So that's like 2 million IP addresses that we saw, 500,000 bot requests, although 130 million human requests. So a few things that are interested. First of all, look at the user agents. So just looking at user agents and hoping that someone just uses Selenium or any stuff is pretty vague. So they know about user agents and they will rotate it as we speak. So again, a few interesting botnets. First one, again, okay, has a couple of million requests. The second, and so on. So, but one interesting thing is this one. So that's the largest transactional bot attack that we saw on our platform ever. It's not a DDoS attack. It's really like the logins that were peaking up to, let me check, forgot the number, 11,000 bot requests per second. So what this guy tried to do is to DDoS the bot management solution. And after that, he can hopefully circumvent it. So scaling is also important if you have a bot management or a security solution. It must scale the same way as the rest of the platform. If it's a bottleneck, then you're in trouble. So, okay, let's look at the targets. Of course, first of all, competitors, partners, third parties, they probably scrape the catalog, scrape your APIs. A lot you use the mobile APIs because maybe your website is pretty good protected, but you forget about the mobile APIs, and that's where you get everything you need. So that's what happens. Fraudsters mostly go into, forms, so logins, user creation, gift cards, of course, because that's where the money is, that's where the sensible information is, the credit card information, or money that they can spend somewhere. So that's the interesting part. So that's where fraud bots mostly try to break in. So we're not talking about hacking, like SQL injection, file side inclusion. We're really talking about credential abuse. And there are a couple of things that I used during my talk. Just wanted to know that you know about what I mean. So credential abuse versus credential stuffing versus account takeover. So I have a little graphic here where it shows you the kill chain, I would say, from a bot. So first, they will buy the credentials somewhere. I'll show you how in the steps. They'll verify the credentials, they try the logins, and then they'll do something with it. That's the actual fraud here. So at the beginning, they abuse credentials from someone else. It's not my credentials. It's something I bought in the darknet, or a list of hacked username password combinations of another service. So that's basically using it in a way they shouldn't, is the abuse part. The credential stuffing is somewhere in the middle. That's actually taking this credentials and trying them out on a new target. So that's stuffing. Nothing happened yet, let's say. Of course, it's still illegal, but there's no abuse yet. And then someone could sell those credentials again and don't do anything with it. That's mostly what happens. Or someone just uses those and does account takeover. Account takeover means I log in with your credentials and I buy stuff I actually don't want, or get the credit card information, or pretend I'm you to do something. There are different ways of this. Today we will talk a little bit more about the stuffing part, because that's interesting. Let's start with where do I get the credentials? So that's a screenshot from Brian Krebs. He did some research. That's Carter's Paradise. It's a shop in the darknet where you can buy credentials. You can buy all kind of weird stuff, but you can also buy credentials. And it's interesting to see the price. So that's basically a big list of credentials that have been leaked, hacked, whatever. You can buy them, download them for $10. So that's easy. There's also, so it's an interesting article, because he also figured out to get into a seller's login page. That means if I want to sell credentials, I use their platform. I log in, I have kind of a seller's place, and I can see my revenue. And he figured that out because he's the guy that uses the same password combination for another site that were leaked. So anyway, but the interesting part is that he did in a couple of months. He did $280,000 earnings, probably without tax, and in bitcoins. And it's growing, so the business is pretty good. And the interesting part is half of the money goes to the seller's place. That's the so it's even just the half. The other half goes to the shop system, if you want. So it's for this guy, it's good. It's easy to sell. You can imagine how often he sells to get to these numbers. Oh, it's written there, right? 4,000, almost 3.5. So that means from the perspective of the hacker, it's not really expensive to do it. What about you? So we did some research. It ranges between $6 and up to $50–60 million of loss if you have a credential abuse attack and credential stuffing, basically. So including all the freight-related losses, operation, downtime, custom churn, and the value of the credentials. It depends. A bank credential has more value maybe than just the e-commerce, but in general, it goes easily in the millions. If not, it's really bankrupt a couple of companies. Next thing is, if they only have a success rate of 1% and you do a little attack with 1 billion attempts, it's still 10 million breaches. So it's pretty easy to get to a number where it's really getting expensive to you, because then the breaches will count for accounts that have been leaked. So attackers can then gain the access. They can do data theft. That's the fraud part. They can do account takeover, identity fraud, basically pretending that they're you, doing something illegal in your name, and the police will stand in front of your door. That happens. OK, back to the kill chain, and now we'll go into the demo part. So first, as I said, the first is reconnaissance. That means identifying a target. So this cool new shop system just launched. That's my new target. OK. Now I go to the darknet and I'll buy all kind of credentials from other sites that are leaked. Maybe some that are closely related. Maybe it is already hacked and I'll just use them. But the best is, of course, someone uses the password or across multiple accounts, and then this is hacked, so I can try it somewhere else. And if I have some luck, he didn't change the password, and here I am. So this might never be leaked, but you still have a problem because this credentials are somewhere, and you probably, as a e-commerce shop, you never know if the credentials that are there are leaked somewhere else, unless you do really a lot of research. OK, now I purchased this list. I'm all set. I spent $20. Next is I need a botnet, because I will not do it from my IP. I'm not that stupid. So I'll get a couple of botnet or proxies. It's enough to get a reverse proxy that is leaked somewhere. There are lists that you can just grab. Or you just create your own botnet, or you rent a botnet. That's pretty easy also, in the darknet, for example. Or there are even GitHub repositories where you can create a new botnet if you want. OK, so I got my weapons ready. Next is the credential stuffing, actually, the delivery. That means I will validate that with my botnet against my target and see, can I log in, can I don't log in, is it a valid password combination or not. And the last is, so now I have the decision. I could sell this information in the darknet again and make money. So that means here I have a list of verified credentials for this new shop. Go and do something with it. Costs $20. Or I can just abuse it myself and try to do the fraud myself. So that's the action part, at the very end of the kill chain, if you will. So now I'll do some demo using a tool called SENTRY MBA. That's actually a script kiddies tool, I would say. You can download it. It's not sophisticated. Just wanted to show you how easy it is to do such an attack. So what happens is, again, I got the credentials from the marketplace, and I use SENTRY MBA to log in. So what you could also get in the darknet is, so as you know from load tests and so on, you need a user journey. That means I get the GET request, and then the form comes, and then I do a POST request, and then I get the session cookie, and so on. So you have to configure this, what you want to do on the site. That's also for sale most of the time for most pages. So you get a configuration file in the darknet for a certain shop. So it makes life easier. I don't have to build it. Or it's not even coding. Click it together myself. OK, so then I need a botnet. So getting a proxy list out of internet, a little Google, I get the proxy list. Or I just do my own botnet because it's fun. I don't know. And then I'll start the tool. So basically, on my machine runs SENTRY MBA as a command and control. I'll put the request to the proxies, which is the botnet, and then they will target the site. And that's what I want to show you now. But, warning. So if you use this tool or anything I show you here against a target without its permission, it's illegal. Really illegal. So don't do that. It's a crime. Using it to pen test, why not? If everyone allows it and you have the OK from the owners, but unless it's of course a weapon, don't use it against anyone else. Oops. OK. Are you ready for some credential abuse? Stuffing. OK, let's see. Now I have to enter my. OK, so I have a VM running SENTRY MBA, and I'll just go through the configuration. Let me check on the time. Uh-oh. So first thing, not sure if you can see that. Zoom in a little bit. So you can have, so you have the target here. It's a demo site I created with my colleague. You can do some timeouts and relaunch. That means to stretch the botnets. To do a relaunch after a certain delay, so don't do it frequently. Wait 5 seconds, then do it again. That's the most important piece here. You can save the configurations and so on. So that's, oops, nothing important. So next section is the actual configuration. If you don't download it, it's pretty easy for you to configure it yourself. One interesting part is the user agents. So I just put a list there. You can put a list of 1,000 user agents. It will basically pick one out and use it. You can also say the referrer instead of none, which might be obvious. Use the base page referrer, and so no one would notice that you don't come from their site. Instead of request you will use the magic wand. And the magic wand is a pretty cool tool, I would say, worth having a look at it. So that's basically putting my stages together. So first of all, you can put the stage in, and you can do analyze login page. And then it will basically go to this login page and check on the session cookie You see the session cookies here. So I'm telling him, always refresh the cookie. You don't want to use the same cookie. That would be, you would then see that it's a cookie abuse attack or a session abuse attack. I want an own session per bot, okay. And that's pretty cool. I'm not using it. Anyone using CAPTCHAs? Good, because it's so easy. I mean, they have a whole CAPTCHA system preventing, so it's pretty easy. What they do is they first do image processing, so they remove colors, do the contrast, and so on, a little bit like Photoshop. Then you'll have the text, and then they'll rotate it in any direction, and then they do OCR, which is pretty good nowadays. And then they will get the text, and they will enter it in the CAPTCHA, and that's it. That's for the text CAPTCHA. There are different ways for the voice CAPTCHA. It will be a text, voice to speech, speech to text recognition. So Python will, there's a little Python code running it, turning it into text, entering it, and then. So the CAPTCHAs are famous to pretty easy nowadays. You see, this tool is pretty simple, but it's effective, and they'll try their best to get around CAPTCHAs. And then you got the authentication stage. It's actually the login. It takes username and password from the list I have. I'll show you in a while. The next thing I said is, after you log in successfully, you will see a homepage. So not a 400 error, but you'll be redirected to my to a homepage, and then please do another redirect to my account. Because, let me show you. So that's my page. And if I log in with the right password, password. Then I'm in login, and if I go to account details, in check balance, I'm in my account, and that's a random number. Simulates it's your account balance or your credit card statement or whatever. So that's exactly what I want, and then I will do a capture state at the end because I'm lazy. So I'm going in there, I'm checking for the diff balance, which is actually the diff here, and getting the number out and putting it into a variable that I later have a nice list of where should I do the fraud. Not the one with the $1, maybe the one with the $1 million. Okay, so that is that. Then there's my lists. So I got the proxy list. That's my botnet that I put in there. I got my word list. That's the keywords. I just generated them. And in between, I'll have some that actually work. And there are some tools you can debug, which is pretty cool. You can basically run your test and check if, with the right credentials if you really did everything wrong. So it shows you the GET request, the PET request, what SENTRY does, and so on. I'll just jump over that because we don't have time. So now I'll just run it. So just use the word list position 1. So I'll start from the very beginning. And yes, start brute force engine, bam. So now this is running. If there is a proxy that is not working, it will be banned, and so on and so forth. So we'll come back after a while and check if we found a login that works. Oh, we don't have to because it already did. So you see here the first result. So it went in with password pferns and password, and the keyword was found. So that's the captured credit. Okay, so basically, oops, where I am, oops. This Zoom makes me crazy. Okay, so that's how easy it is actually to run a credential abuse attack. And now I'm going back to this. And if you have questions later on, I'll answer them. But let me just finish that. So why do I show that? Because we think there's two ways to prevent that. Now we're in the prevention phase. Doing that in the fraud prevention, there's a lot of really expensive tools to do that. What is the problem? Yeah, the fraud already happened. You already have a credential abuse. So you might block a certain user, you might block to do more harm, but mostly already harm happened. So it's too late. It's expensive, and you are already compromised. So we think you should start earlier in the bot chain. That should happen in the credential abuse. So if you see the bots that do the credential abuse and you either block them or give them other values so they think it's not a valid login, they will never be able to get a list that they can sell and then someone can abuse. So that's the right place. So the question is, how can we detect bots? And there's an evolution of bots. So you could say during time, bots got more and more and more and more sophisticated because they figured out, okay, there's a new weapon, I have to make it differently. So it's also simple to sophisticate, a little bit also timeline, but you will still see all those kind of bots hanging around. So the easiest one is, I would use SENTRY and just use it for my IP, so a single IP. Pretty easy by IP blocking. We saw the first example of my bot, the stupid bot that was 2 IPs, so that should work. Of course, bots said, okay, then we'll just use a lot of bots and we'll do just 1 request every day. So rate controls will, no wait, first I said I use multiple IPs. Then you'll use rate controls, you'll check that every IP only does 1 login per minute or something like that. And then, of course, next evolution step is we will use all kind of things. We will use a low request rate, we will use randomized user agents as we did. We will impersonate browsers, that means we use headless browsers like Slenimon or whatever. We will record human sessions and replay them. We will support full cookies, so in order to not have a session cookie or a cookie replay attack. So all of that can be detected with anomaly detection because it's so hard to get it right and really do it as a real browser does. You will, there are multiple things that will come into a scoring model like, okay, you come from a cloud service provider, not from a human service provider or end customer service provider, and you forgot the referrer header, or you forgot, or you pretend you are Firefox version XYZ, but the headers orders are wrong because we know Firefox version XYZ has this order. So this kind of anomaly helps here. If you do all of that, and actually my colleague Paul, he tried with SENTRY to do all of that right, that we don't detect anomaly. And some, of course, like doing the referrer, don't do it empty, and so on. You can get there if you know the other side. But he didn't get to a point where there's no anomaly in those requests. And most of those attackers, the script kiddies, will just use the tool, use the default settings, and will probably don't do those sophisticated hacks in the header and so on. Because the tool even says, only do that if you really know what you do. Otherwise, keep the default. So most people will do that. Other than that, headless browser, everything right. It's actually a real browser that does the requests. We will look at browser fingerprinting. That means the browser tells us the combination of, so every browser has a pretty unique fingerprint based on the version, the plugins that you installed, and so on. So it's like a fingerprint. And if this fingerprint comes across 1,000 IPs, then we know it's always the same browser, actually. So that's a good indication. But guess what? They start browser finger spoofing. There are tools you can easily for $99 buy a huge database of fingerprints and put them in the tool. Okay, so that's also possible. We're getting the pretty sophisticated bots now, probably the ones that do credential abuse now, and not the web scrapers and these tools around that would probably be down there somewhere. So the last thing you have to do, and that's something where now we're at the top level, you have to check on the user behavior analytics. That means mouse movement, keystrokes. How does a human actually interact with the site? The mouse movement is smooth. It's not like this. The keystrokes are in a certain way. Up to a certain user does a certain keystroke, and now he changed that. So it's anomaly based on not only those things, but also telemetry data. So how is this working? So we're grabbing behavioral data from the client, either through JavaScript, either through the network and the request that came in, all the anomaly that is in there, that's one part. The second, also the network, like changing network settings from after you logged in and then change it completely. So there are some anomalies in there that could look at the network data. But in general, JavaScript on the site will collect user movement, so the mouse movement, the keystrokes while you log in, you hit enter, and then we'll send this back. and analyze it. On a mobile side, it's the accelerometer, it's the touching, it's the human interaction that a bot will never do. At least until now, there is no bot capable of doing that. And this all goes into analytics engine. So if you heard the Google talk about machine learning, that's exactly that. So we need a lot of signals in machine learning to identify if something is a false positive or not. And nowadays, if you have a lot of signals and you have a good machine learning engine, and we have a lot of data because we have a lot of customers, we have a good engine to distinguish using those signals if it's a human or not. And then it's pretty highly accurate. So everyone in security knows there is no 100% false positive, will never detect. So if anyone says that, that's not true. But you have to keep it really, really low. So we can do that because this engine turns around and says, I'll identify a human. Everyone who's not a human is a bot. So back to the demo. So he still just found one. I think I have 3 in there. But I wanted to show you basically the other side of things. So how would that look like if you check the attack that came in here? Just go back to the last hour. So you see here my attack. You see my IP addresses. The frequency is pretty low, 0.5 requests per second. That's only the login attacks that I did, there's no traffic on the side, but that's interesting. If I look at what categories they fall in, then you'll see. So that's the real attack we just launched, if you look at the timing. We have request anomaly in there, a lot. Then we have cookie integrity. Although we used session, we didn't update the cookies at some point. And then there was a validation that we detected. We detected some development frameworks. I think that's Java, because it's not always running a browser. It seems some request came from Java, and we detected that. And scraper reputation and behavior anomaly, basically. That's the part that does only the login endpoint and looks at the analytics data. So there was analytics data missing. Looking at request anomaly, just to filter down on that and look at sample log. And then I'm almost done. Oh, my botnet is in China. Anyway, you can see the scoring shows a lot of anomalies here for this one request. The accept language was missing, the cookie header was missing, connection anomaly with HTTP. It uses a really slow protocol version of HTTP. Chrome signature anomaly, version mismatch, session cookie abuse. So that's easy for us to detect, although this tool is pretty cool, right? Next thing is this, looking at this endpoint protection. That's basically the analytics, so the telemetry data analytics. Oh no, there's no human traffic, so that's why. So normally you see the human traffic, and then you see the bot traffic coming in. Yeah, basically, that's it. Maybe the last category. Scraper reputation might be interesting. So we have a reputation database because we see, so Akamai sees around 30–40% of the internet traffic. So we see every IP once, twice a day, and we know what they do. They attack our customers, and then they will get a bad rating. The IP address gets a bad rating. So my VM got a bad rating. Or one of those IP addresses, actually. That'd be interesting which ones. Because maybe so they already have a bad reputation. And based on that, even if they don't do anything, if they would have a bad reputation of 8 or 9, so we have like between 1 and 10, the dynamic reputation, you can basically block on that. So as a last slide, and then I'm done. What can you do with this information? So we put them in categories. We identified them. That's the most important piece. Now we have to do an action on them. Blocking is not a good idea with bots, because if they detect that you block them because of an error, server error, they will change the strategy. They will get a new IP. They will do whatever to circumvent you. So tarpit might be better. It's basically keeping the connection open until it's timeout. We have a lot of capacity, so we can do that. So for the bot provider, it looks like a timeout, and just try again. Without changing the behavior. You can slow down if you say, okay, I have a search, I have some marketing tool which is scraping more than Google, so They should still scrape, but they'll slow them down. So it's also good for good bots. So detect, or a partner is not using your API, so you detected it, give him an ID, and then said, okay, please use our API. You can signal it to your origin. Origin means the backend system, your Amazon, whatever, and say, please show them an alternate content. That means the prices, not the real prices, but prices plus random number. So they'll be always above the real prices. And then that means your comparison platform will show you as the cheapest, maybe, if you do the lower prices, or will just mess up and you'll mess up with their business. So that's nothing uncommon in e-commerce, by the way. Yeah, and so on. So different ways to do that. So to summarize now, so we have a couple of minutes for questions. What you need is a good detection, because if you don't detect them, this all makes no sense. So you need a good detection method. You need machine learning engine, telemetry data, but the whole stack, not only this, not only captchas, not only a fingerprinting service based on that. You need a whole stack, because depending on where, it will stop there and it'll detect the bot there. If it's more sophisticated, it will try other things in real time, by the way. So every request will be checked, and in this second, we will say what will we do with this request. Because we're a proxy service also, we can decide while this request comes in. Then you don't want to work with the bots by IPs or by whatever. We want to categorize them. If there are good bots, we'll categorize them in search engine Google, and then they'll get a name. Okay. If it's a botnet, that means 1,000 IPs do the same script. We will give it a name, with probably hash number or something. But you can identify this, and you can categorize based on the detection method, like request anomaly. And then you can basically say, I cleaned it up from false positives because maybe someone uses some request that forgot the certain headers, and so I'll exclude those. So cleaning up makes sense. And then you say, okay, the rest I will just target them or whatever. So you can, per category, say, I want to do something with it. So the management part is the piece that is important. Not only detecting, categorizing, but also saying what to do with what category, because it's different. So some are pretty easy to block, like maybe the reputation part. Some are gray area where you say, okay, not for the whole site, but at least for login. And some you just want to monitor, maybe your own scripts, your own tools, your partners, and so on. And you would have to have a good visibility in order to do this, like I did with the drill down into those systems to really check the different dimensions of this request, if you did it right, if it's clean, if it's really an attack. Without that, it's always, don't want to get into a version where you just get, okay, let's grab the server logs, put it somewhere in Kibana, and try to see what happens. It's difficult with bots to really see something. You probably see this, scratch the surface and see this 10% that you think are bots, but the rest you'll never see. And they will do under the radar, and they will steal the credentials, maybe without you noticing ever. Okay, that's it. Thank you. If you have questions, write me an email or now. Any questions?
Hi, this is John.
Hi.
Samy. One real-world example where the question is like, where do you put the bot detection logic? So we had an exploit where bots would sign up with a name that contained some Russian characters with the intent of emailing those people some spam text. And I'm wondering whether that is actually the right place to catch those bots on the CDN side, because then your CDN needs to know a lot of how my pages look. They need to know this is a register page and I'm not expecting Chinese characters. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, good question. I mean, Akamai is nowadays more than just a CDN where we came from. It's not about caching. We're a processing and delivery platform, being really close to the end users, always like one hop away, like, I don't know, different locations. So every internet service provider, we're in there. That means even the attacker, we're near to the attacker. So that's one thing. Then it doesn't matter really if we don't know the structure. So the configuration is anyway not a black box. So you can define things. You can say, for this form, URL, I want to ingest the JavaScript to get the telemetry data to detect using this mechanism. And for example, for request anomaly, I want to exclude this form and so on. So at the end, it doesn't matter that it's a form, and it doesn't matter that it's Chinese characters. It matters that it's not a human that entered that. It's a bot at the end. So basically, just don't look at the result. Then you're again at the end of the kill chain. Start by detecting that it's a bot, and that it's not a bot that you are aware of or that you have business with. And then just don't allow him to do this post request. Or say, if he does this post request and it's a bot and it's in the categories that I identified are safe, then yeah, just kill the post request and tell him, okay, thank you for the request, but you never basically pass it back to the backend. And it will save your backend because we're on the very forefront getting those requests out of your way. Because same as a web application firewall, being a cloud provider, we are since a long time, but we never said we are. It's a platform that basically is agnostic, so you can have a hybrid platform, you can have whatever backend you have, but you will implement security on this layer, because that's the one where everything comes in. And of course, at some point, there are information that only you have, but we are just part of your infrastructure. You can configure us, you can tell us, you can manipulate us, you can use our APIs, Terraform, CLIs, APIs, whatever to do whatever needed to see it as part of the infrastructure. And then you can start with alert mode like I did. I didn't block those requests. And then learn from those, and then basically say, I want a custom rule for this kind of attack. That's also always possible. But then you're back to, I'm looking at the attack. But better is getting rid of all the bots that you don't want on the page. And then those will automatically fall in this category. And if someone does something completely different, that you don't have a custom rule or any custom definition, it will automatically fall in this bucket, and you don't have to do anything. So that's the main goal. Did that answer the question? That was a long answer. Yeah.
Hi. I've got a question regarding the behavioral analysis part. Disabled users sometimes have a very certain way to address how they use a resource. So is that analysis able to discern that a disabled person is actually a human and not a bot?
Didn't get the question.
You didn't get, maybe I've rephrased it the other way. So maybe physically disabled persons don't use a mouse.
Ah, got it, yeah. Good question. So I guess, again, you as a shop provider, you would know how to distinguish those requests. And you will basically say, unless it's this and this, then do it. Again, of course, that could be another way for attacker to come in, so you have to secure it somehow. But maybe not with this kind of mechanism. That's why it's multi-layered. So maybe telemetry data. And by the way, telemetry data doesn't mean it's only the mouse movement. It's a lot of things. So if only this is missing, we might still identify it as a bot. If someone is not sending back the beacon, then or the information, that's also a bot, because normally it will not block it. So if you just block all the cookies and requests that go back, you might also be identified as bot, although you're not. But that's, again, a business decision. How hard do you want to be, and how individual you want to do those rules based on your application, of course. So, but I never had that was an issue. That would be a false positive, definitely. But on all the sites and e-commerce sites, especially using this system, I never heard about that. Any one of you? No problem. So, but yeah, it would be an okay, we have to stop. If you have questions, you can also come to the front and ask me directly.